One of our Kurban facilities in Gaza was caught in the middle of escalating events. The building was filled with Kurban animals, and the footage we received is so difficult to watch. But even as instability grows, our team is still here, still preparing for Eid. We're doing...
Right, welcome back, everybody. So we have with us long crimes reporter Elizabeth Milner, who has been inside that courtroom for every day of testimony and things that are not even testimony related, including an outburst today and apparently someone getting banned from court. Elizabeth, it's good to see you. Let's start with what happened here. So you're in court. What did somebody say? And also, I understand somebody else is now banned from being in that courtroom. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, so Jesse, this happened first thing this morning. It was outside of the presence of the jury. We were actually talking, or not we, as far as the press is going, but the arguments were about Mia's testimony and possibly introducing some jail calls. So I was listening, taking notes, and then all of a sudden I'm hearing screaming going on. And it's from a woman who we've been kind of noticing has been causing a couple of troubles here and there, just as far as court goes. She was removed from the overflow room during jury selection, and she was removed from the main courtroom today during these arguments. And so I'm writing down my notes, I'm jotting everything down, but even just the backstory of this particular woman, we in the press have been referring to her as the MTA lady. It's not necessarily confirmed whether or not she actually works for MTA, but she always kind of comes in with an MTA jacket, and that's how we kind of have remembered her. So I'm just going to give you guys the low that we had kind of had bets with amongst us in the press just about how long it would take before something like this were to happen again, because we were thinking that she would cause trouble just right off the bat, and then lo and behold, it didn't take very long for her to kind of stir up some trouble and for the marshals to escort her out. So from what I heard, it was just cussing, it was yelling, mainly from her, and then I saw just 4 marshals just try to grab her. She was saying things along the lines of, oh, use your gun against me, that type of thing, and she was threatened, I believe, with a taser, but that didn't happen. We didn't see any of that. And so from our understanding is after this incident, after kind of the marshals escorted her outside of the courtroom, as far as what was going on inside for the judge, he went back to business as usual. But from my understanding, she was just kind of dismissed from the courthouse altogether, and likely won't be able to come back in, and likely won't be able to come back in the courtroom too. But even as far as just the incident of somebody revealing Mia's true identity and I guess saying this over a live stream or in a video, that type of thing, that was also brought up shortly after the incident of the woman having the outburst inside the courtroom today. And so what we did learn about that, it was somebody who was actually sitting on our side of the press, not with a NYC verified press credential, nothing like that, but what it's been kind of alleged is that it was somebody sitting on our side who kind of works for a blog or a media outlet, that type of thing, and that after court yesterday was doing this video, doing this live stream, and was essentially talking about Mia and wasn't referring to Mia as her pseudonym, was instead referring to Mia as her true identity. And so what AUSA Emily Johnson discussed with the judge today is that she didn't see this individual inside the courtroom today, so there was no further, I guess, talk about what was to happen next. But if this person were to show up once again, then they'll definitely not be allowed back into the courtroom, and I doubt even into the overflow room at this point either.
Well, Elizabeth, that is quite a way to start the day. And let me tell you something. We just got a super chat comment from Donnie TV. Great reporting, Elizabeth Milner. So there you go. So you got a bunch of fans online. But talking about that, talk to me real quick, because I know you have to head back into court in a little bit. Eddie Garcia takes the stand. Now, you and I talked about him yesterday, because yesterday he was intending to invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. You know, ears perk up. What's he going to say? What did he do wrong? And he was granted immunity to testify. So this former security guard from the Intercontinental Hotel, what were the highlights of his testimony?
Well, I thought Eddie Garcia had a lot of highlighted moments during his testimony. So yes, we did see him invoke his Fifth Amendment right as far as self-incrimination goes, just yesterday. And then we saw him actually take the stand today. And so he was questioned by AUSA Mitzi Steiner. And so the basis, or the kind of the meat of his testimony, had to kind of be surrounded by what had happened on March 5th of 2016. Anyone who has been following this case knows that that was the exact day of the Intercontinental Hotel incident. And so what we learned from Eddie Garcia is that he is now 33 years old. However, at the time that this incident occurred, he was just 24 years old. He was working for Securitas, who we kind of know a little bit about from Officer Israel Flores' testimony, who was one of the first witnesses called by the government to testify essentially against Sean Combs, aka Diddy. So we were learning just about who the director of security was, and that was a man named Bill Medrano. The assistant director of security was Officer Israel Flores. And so Eddie Garcia was talking about how he's still friends with Israel Flores. Saw him a couple weeks ago, but they didn't talk about the substance of their testimony. But Garcia said he saw a TikTok about his testimony, so I thought that part was interesting. So we see an exhibit photo of the employee sign-in sheet, where you see on the day of this incident that we see Eddie had worked from 2 p.m. till 1:30 in the morning. And so we saw some extra overtime because he normally gets off at 10 p.m., but instead on that day, he got off at 1:30 in the morning. And so he was saying after this incident occurred that we know from Officer Israel Flores' testimony that Diddy was kind of trying to buy his way out of this, trying to say like, hey, I got some money, can you make this go away? But then from Eddie Garcia's perspective, he said he got a phone call from somebody, and it wasn't necessarily Diddy at first, but we heard from him today that Christina Quorum had called him. And he said he was even kind of nervous and a little apprehensive about how Christina Quorum got not only his work number, but his personal cell phone number too. And so then there was kind of a sidebar, and the sidebar was pretty lengthy because right before the sidebar had happened, Christina Quorum said something along the lines to Eddie Garcia that Diddy was intoxicated that night and didn't remember what was going on. But they were pretty much trying to obtain the one and only version of that security tape. They wanted to buy it off of the hotel, and initially they were going to purchase it for about $50,000. However, Diddy gave them double that of money. He gave them $100,000, and that money was divvied up pretty much. It was divvied up $50,000 to the director, or it was divvied up $50,000 to Bill, who was the director of security. Henry Elias, who also works at the hotel, was given $20,000. Eddie Garcia kept $30,000 to himself and actually used the money to buy a used car. Then we kind of slowly got into what Eddie had to do in return for this money, and that was to sign an NDA. We saw kind of a copy of this NDA inside the courtroom, where it was pretty much saying that you're not to discuss this, you're signing away that you are giving away the one and only copy. And as far as Eddie Garcia is concerned, he said the next time he saw that this video, because he thought that he had turned over the one and only copy through a thumb drive to Diddy, he thought that was done. He thought that this incident was over. He was going about his business until he saw the video once again playing on CNN. And it's a video that a lot of us have seen at this point, and possibly even some jurors too.
Yeah, I find that.
Do you know the UK landlords?
Fourth week of
Now to the Sean Combs sex trafficking trial. Enters a fourth week of testimony as we hear from Suge Knight, Combs' rap rival, whose name has come up often at the trial. Dan Abrams is standing by. We're going to talk to him after Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky gives us this report from the courthouse. Good morning, Aaron.
And good morning to you, George. Long before federal prosecutors put Sean Combs on trial here, his chief hip-hop competitor told us that Combs was known in the industry for some of the very conduct that could now put him in prison.
Can't nobody hold me down. Oh, no.
This morning is a fourth week of testimony in the industry for some of the very conduct that could now put him in prison.
Can't nobody hold me down. Oh, no.
This morning is a fourth industry for some of the very conduct that could now put him in prison.
Can't nobody hold me down. Oh, no.
This morning is a fourth week of testimony begins in the Sean Combs trial in New York. His West Coast rival and Death Row Records founder Suge Knight is speaking out from behind bars in California, telling ABC News Combs' sexual appetites were an open secret beginning in the 1990s.
Everybody knew that Puffy didn't just pop in the industry and say, hey, I want to have sex with everybody.
News Combs' sexual appetites were an open secret beginning in the 1990s.
Everybody knew that Puffy didn't just pop in the industry and say, hey, I want to have sex with everybody. I want to have sex with everybody. Pop in the industry and say, hey, I want to have sex with everybody.
The rivalry between Combs and Knight, notoriously marked by the shooting deaths of Biggie Smalls and Knight's artist Tupac Shakur, has come up at trial. Capricorn Clark became Combs' assistant after working for Knight and testified that on her first day, Combs took her to Central Park. He told me he didn't know that I had anything to do with Suge Knight, and if anything happened, he would have to kill me.
A lot of people might say, well,
His assistant after working for Knight and testified that on her first day, Combs took her to Central Park. He told me he didn't know that I had anything to do with Suge Knight, and if anything happened, he would have to kill me.
a lot of people might say, well, Capricorn could have did anything else she wanted to do. She did try. If you go get a job at Universal and probably make a phone call, you're not getting that job. If you go get a job at a talent agency or in the movie business and probably make that call, your career is over.
Knight has come up during trial at least 50 times. Another former assistant, David James, testified he once spotted Knight at Mel's Diner in Los Angeles and was then forced to accompany Combs, who he said was armed, to confront him.
If there's anything suggesting that I was doing anything illegal, I'm going to say definitely not.
Knight, who was then forced to accompany Combs, who he said was armed, to confront him.
If there's anything suggesting that I was doing anything illegal, I'm going to say definitely not.
Knight, who spoke to us from a California prison where he's serving time for a fatal hit and run, expressed some sympathy for Combs.
I don't feel that they should take Puffy and lock him up and throw away the key. I think he can do so much good right now. Him telling the truth about the industry. He can do so much good right now. Him telling the truth about the industry. They should take Puffy and lock him up and throw away the key. I think he can do so much good right now. Him telling the truth about the industry.
And
Hi, I'm Amy Pilgrim. Thanks for streaming with us here on ABC News Live. Week 3 of the Sean Diddy Combs trial has wrapped, and we should note this show will contain graphic content from the courtroom today. 5 witnesses testified this week, 2 former employees, a Los Angeles police officer, fire department investigator, and a celebrity stylist. The latest witness on the stand testifying under the pseudonym Mia, recounting her time as Combs' former assistant. Mia alleged working for Combs was chaotic, toxic, and dependent on his whim. She told the jury she feared she couldn't tell him no, testifying, "I felt I had to. I obeyed Puff's orders." Mia also saying Combs sexually assaulted her more than once, leaving her feeling terrified and confused and ashamed and scared. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges. His defense team says any sexual encounters were consensual. If convicted, Combs faces the possibility of life in prison.